Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the final phase of the past 3 days that we've spent with focus on discussions towards powering the Lagos economy with its real opportunities and endless possibilities. You'll agree with me after you would have listened to all that was said and that will be encapsulated by the two individuals I'm going to introduce shortly, that it's been quite engaging. And the road forward, the way forward really is that of how soon can we really get it done quickly? Not that can it be done. We have seen that it can be done. Permit me at this point to quickly recognize three individuals who need to be singled out. First is the first civilian governor of Lagos State, Alhaji Lateef Kayode Jakonde, an elder statesman. He's here with us. On the opening day, these next two gentlemen were here. They sat quietly throughout the entire proceedings. They were here yesterday and they're here now. I have the pleasure of recognizing the presence of Monsieur Jacques Champagne de Labrioli, the ambassador of France to Nigeria. Equally with us is Monsieur François Sastonnet, the Consul General of France to Nigeria. You're welcome. The presentation of recommendations and resolutions at Ehigbeti 2014 will be made now by Mrs. Maureen Desalu, Managing Director, Risk Watch Insurance Brokers. Let's put our hands together for her. She comes. And Mr. Additional Fagbenro Byron, Regional Coordinator, DFID, Nigeria.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Raji Fashola, the Deputy Governor, Mrs. Orelupe Adefulere, former Governor of Lagos State, Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Lagos State Executive Council, the sponsors and partners on Ehigbeti 2014, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to this final segment where we look at how far we have come in these last 2 days while discussing powering the Lagos economy, real opportunities and endless possibilities. I'll just go through how this presentation would work. We're going to run through the summit objectives. Then we will discuss we'll talk about the lessons from past summits. Then what we learned and what we talked about. Then we will take you through our recommendations and the resolutions and conclusions. And sadly, as the governor bids farewell to Ehigbeti, we shall hear him. The summit objectives. This biannual summit serves as a platform for policy dialogue between the Lagos State government and the wider stakeholder community to generate and implement ideas and innovations which drive growth and development in Lagos State, to enable exploration and utilization of emerging opportunities that position Lagos as Africa's model mega city and global economic and financial hub, to help in building and strengthening development, social and business networks. The feedback that we've received from previous summits is changing the nature of the summit. Since 2008, this summit has moved from being a merely diagnostic exercise in nature to being an action-driven and implementation-oriented session. Then successful implementation of summit recommendations and resolutions. There have been 6 previous summits, and these yielded 152 resolutions and recommendations. Only 13 of these remain outstanding, All others have been implemented. Even with those that are outstanding, they are work in progress. Some examples of post-summit action are in the power sector, energy and power audits, and provision of IPPs. And even at this conference, people have had to fill out surveys in this regard. Agriculture, increased cultivation of rice and other staples, enablers of agro-enterprise. Transportation, enhancement of transport infrastructure in rail, water, and road. And most of us are witnesses to public transportation improvements in the Lagos State zone. Housing and urban renewal, affordable housing and accessible mortgage facilities, environmental enhancement. This year, 2014, the objectives were really power. Electricity serves a number of purposes in the processes of socio-economic development and growth. Power as an enabler was discussed. Power as a handle was on the agenda. Power as a catalyst. The primacy of power in development makes it understandable and appropriate that this year's summit has powering the Lagos economy, real opportunities and endless possibilities as the theme. And the objectives included to gain a better understanding of how the government of Lagos State can facilitate an improvement in the supply of electricity to Lagos. To dimension the issues, challenges, and opportunities in the Lagos power sector. Then we went on to listen to the governor when the conference was opened. And the governor's address was very, very inspiring. Notwithstanding this being his last summit as governor, and he would have been forgiven for a triumphal, backward-looking speech, the opening address delivered by His Excellency provided a fitting, forward-looking framework. His remarks reiterated the primacy of the focus on power, agriculture, transport, and housing, PATH, in achieving the Lagos State government's growth and development ambitions. He presented a copious list of actions taken since the summit in 2012, which illustrate the commitment of Lagos State government to its vision of Lagos as a model megacity, a hub for activity, and the impact which investment in infrastructure renewal is having on improving the opportunity space, raising cost efficiency, and above all, enabling residents achieve their ambitions. With respect to the importance of the power sector, he shared the impact on various facets of life and living in Lagos, of action taken to improve street lighting as a result of the state's independent power projects. He drew attention to the challenge of going beyond the headline data in achieving and sustaining inclusive growth, which positively affects the realities of residents. We also got some very good lessons from the experiences of our foreign visitors. A moving speech by Mikhail Saakashvili, the former president of Georgia. Mr. Saakashvili drew attention to a number of characteristics and actions which enabled Georgia achieve and sustain a turnaround in its fortunes by sheer determination to achieve well-defined objectives. You can generate the power that would be enough for Nigeria if you will put your heart to it with commitment and without personal interest. That was a quotable quote. Government should decentralize the process of getting public services, documents, in order to achieve more results in the shortest possible time. Willingness to take controversial, unusual policy measures and actions he said, genuine reforms genuine reforms come with some form of suffering that the people will have to bear. Strengthening institutional capacities, which, as he stated, then ensures that it is to be borne in mind, he noted, that we are building something that when we leave will not look like us, but will remind people of us. Yesterday night, we had the experience of age and great administration from Mr. Pedro Pires, former president of Cape Verde. He reminded us that leaders must develop transformation agendas and action plans for implementation. Leaders should stop managing poverty and instead channel those energies into managing development, because development management cannot be equated with poverty management. Leaders need to spearhead projects of transformation agendas and vigorously seek to realize those agendas.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Now we are going to go into the detail in terms of the recommendations and resolutions. And what we have done is to, for each heading, we've provided some recommendations. Now the first, how can electricity delivery to Lagos be accelerated? The Lagos State should focus keenly on aspects of the power value chain within its jurisdiction. For example, local distribution networks, the transformers. Secondly, partnering with the DISCOs to promote embedded generation, which includes emergency power and regular power. Embedded power generation is a ring-fence approach to achieving power production quickly. The third, Lagos State government should, through its partnership with the DISCOs, seek to reduce losses and any other measures necessary to ensure effective and efficient distribution of available power. Number 4, Lagos State government should facilitate the operation of the DISCOs by ensuring that things like land, right-of-way, permits, etc., are made easily accessible to the DISCOs. Number 5, sharing its development plans with the DISCOs in advance to influence planning by the DISCOs. In essence, while the private sector are doing their projects, I believe that in the course of planning their own projects, they should align those projects, particularly looking at the power needs of new projects, with the power needs of new government projects itself. LASG, as a local regulator of sorts, without interfering with the mandate of NERC, should serve as an arbiter between the DISCOs and the consumers in Lagos State. Lagos State should, through its partnership with the DISCOs, seek to reduce losses and any other measures necessary. I think we've mentioned that before. Lagos State government should also continue to engage with the federal government towards speeding up completion of connectivity infrastructure, liberalization of the gas market to bring prices to export parity, which will ensure sufficient liquidity in the gas sector to support all solutions, as well as movement towards more cost-reflective tariffs to engender investment required in the power sector. These are the issues that will help us to accelerate. Now we go to the next set. How do we deliver adequate gas to power? The first being the acceleration, the second now the adequacy. Lagos State should seek to obtain direct equity stakes in gas acreages in offshore Lagos to gain more control of the gas molecules for redirection into the Lagos market. The Lagos State government can provide a framework that guarantees gas uptake from gas fields in offshore Lagos in order to make those investments bankable and expedite their progress. Now, second, Lagos State should join the advocacy for alternative technologies for gas delivery into the Lagos. For example, the use of floating storage and regasification units to regasify LNG for the use by domestic plants. Also, investments in mini LNG plants, use of CNG and synthetic fuels to meet domestic gas demand, and gas plants mounted on barges along the coast of Lagos. With regard to managing transition issues from the public to the private sector controlled power industry, Lagos State should communicate to NERC and other relevant agencies the need to ensure that the transition from public to private sector controlled industry is well managed by addressing the issues such as the need for firm but fair regulation, including disciplinary measures such as licensing revocation where applicable, and of course co-ownership with labor of privatized assets will be a beneficial incentive to labor and will boost its beneficial cooperation. Worker retaining and acculturation to new standards should be facilitated by employers. Workers retaining is a critical element of the change management process. Lagos State government should actively engage in the political lobby for the speedy completion of key projects such as the Escravos to Lagos pipeline system. 2. In terms of harnessing electricity to grow the agric, the transport, and housing sectors, we think that Lagos State, or we resolve that Lagos State should take advantage of the liberalized power industry to promote growth in these 3 sectors by doing the following. For agriculture, there needs to be further collaboration with players along the value chain and assistance to farmers in the acquired relevant skills. Implementation of local food content bill to encourage hotels and retail stores to patronize locally produced food items. Development of captive power projects for the agri-farm settlements and estates. We need to institutionalize the current efforts of the government at powering agricultural areas, grant electricity subsidies to encourage agricultural entrepreneurs. On transport, we need to electrify the transportation system. By electrifying the transportation system, this will reduce the dependence on petroleum products, reduce the same on gas, and some of these noted effects, enabling the use of intelligent transport system and provide more employment for use. I believe what the railway line is doing is tending towards this direction. This is just an urge to accelerate things towards that direction. In terms of housing, high/medium-rise buildings should be used for high-density areas to encourage efficient utilizations of resources, particularly space. Buildings should be designed for proper circulation and lighting to reduce energy requirements. Sustainable industry buildings processes such as prefabrication and assembly should be employed in building projects, especially when energy becomes available. How do we harness electricity to transform social infrastructure? And by social infrastructure, we're now talking more about health, education, and things that ordinarily we would not necessarily seek out to profit from. Say Lagos State should explore, and where found suitable, collaborate with the private sector partners to create what we call smart cities. This involves collation, combination, aggregation, analysis, and interpretation of relevant demographic information. The smart city concept will provide us with adequate data on electricity usage pattern. This, in turn, can be used to determine peak and off-peak periods. We should advocate and encourage ongoing grid upgrade and aggressive upgrade of distribution facilities. Invest in distribution equipment as well. We should pursue a waste-to-power policy and a gas-to-power policy to drive projects in that direction as practical ways by which we can harness electricity to transform social